Hey everyone, my name is Gavin Thomas. I am a social media strategist with Mason Digital, and we've been partnering over the last year or so with NOFA New York to go over some social media strategies for them as an organization. And one thing we're going to be doing today is running through a basic best practices and how-to, if you will, of social media specifically for farmers. So without further ado, we'll jump in. We're going to talk about a couple of different things today. The first is just a general overview of what social media is and why it's important to your business and your farm. So we will dive right into that section. So what is social media? So traditionally, you as a business, a lot of what you've been doing in terms of marketing and sales for your produce and your products has been really talking at people and telling them what you provide. And it's really been kind of a one-way push approach to your marketing efforts. And what social media has done is really kind of flip the script and turn it more into a two-way form of communication. So rather than speaking at people, you with the advent of social media and the adoption of social media, it really becomes talking with people rather than talking at them, and really, positioning what you do on the farm and what you do from a marketing and sales and operations standpoint. It really becomes more of a look at this approach rather than a hey, look at me approach. So keep that in mind as we move throughout this presentation. So in terms of the specifics and how social media can affect your business and where it comes into play, I think it's really important and something that we want you all to know that social media touches every and all aspects of your business and your farm. So certainly marketing and advertising, a lot of people think of social media as being housed within this portion of the business, which is certainly true, but it's definitely the case that it doesn't solely live within your marketing and advertising efforts. It could mean customer service, so people who get your produce from your farm, whether it's through a farmer's market, through a CSA that you will hold, or your products if you have a storefront. The customer service and feedback opportunities with social media are definitely great, and something that traditionally you answer phone calls or people stop and it's an in-person communication, or you get emails from customers who use your products. Social media is a great place, and in a lot of cases a time saver when it comes to customer service. Product and service development. So this is a really important one. Traditionally businesses have relied on things like focus groups, whether informal or formal, to really get feedback on the actual products and services that they provide. And especially with farming, you want to know you want to know what your products are, how your consumers are seeing those products, what they want to see differently, what other services they want to see your farm provide. If you solely sell through a farmer's market, for example, and people want to go directly to your farm and become part of a CSA, for example, this is a great area to learn that information and to get that feedback. Public relations, another great business area where social media can certainly come into play. So, do you have a big event at your farm that you want to get the word out about? Or, are you taking part in the NOFA New York Winter Conference, for example, that's coming up or has passed, depending on when you're watching this? Public relations is definitely a key aspect of social media for businesses. Sales, like I said, letting people know what products, what produce, what different services and products your farm has. Social media is a great way to get the word out and to make real connections with people who are going to buy your products, whether you're selling them to stores or restaurants or directly to a consumer. Crisis communication, so obviously a very important aspect of farming in general. There are a lot of things that you can't control, weather, for example. So if something really, bad does happen, or there's a bad crop season because of, heavy rainfall, for example, social media is a great place to get out those communications, let people know, the information of how they can, help your farm, or, what they can do to help you get through those things that you can't control. Again, customer and market research, learning what your customers want to see different or what they really like about what you're doing, and really so much more. So again, the theme of this slide is really to not think about social media in its own silo, so to speak, pardon the farming pun, but really to ingrain it in every area of your operations and your business. Another important thing to remember is you are doing all of this type of communication anyway. As we mentioned, whether it's email communication or phone communications or just talking to your friends or your workers or others within the farming industry, you're having these communications and conversations already. It just happens that these have been shifting into the digital and social media environment. So conversations are happening on Facebook versus all the time happening over the phone or in person, which is great and can really benefit your business. So I did want to go over a couple of very quick stats just to kind of show you how much social media has been adopted. Obviously, if you're watching this, you're interested in it. You're likely on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or another property as an individual and probably as a business as well. But certainly social media as a whole has experienced explosive growth in the last 5 or 10 years. And just a couple of examples. Facebook is certainly far and away the most used social network, and I don't see that changing anytime soon. They add 500,000 new users every single day, and 6 new Facebook profiles are created every single second. So these are obviously numbers that are growing at a rapid pace. 90+% of people who use Facebook access it through their mobile phones. And this is something we'll talk about, the content and the things you're sharing on Facebook and other social media channels. But just keep that in mind, that people are using their mobile devices and their phones more and more every day, and especially to access sites like Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, those types of sites. Again, 47% access Facebook only on their mobile device, so they're completely ignoring their desktops and their laptops and even their tablets in some cases. So, they're looking at very small screens, even though some of those screens are getting bigger on the mobile devices, but it's a very, very important environment to be thinking about as you're coming up with things to share on these social media sites. So some of the potential benefits, and I'll run through this list. It's probably a little bit small to see on the screen, but why are businesses using social media and what benefits are they seeing come from it? So this was from a recent survey of small businesses, and 90% said that social media and activity in the social media environment brought them increased exposure. So again, getting your, what you produce, your produce, your products from the farm, getting those options in front of more people is far and away the leading reason why businesses like you guys are using social media sites. Increasing traffic to your website. If you have websites where people can again sign up for your CSA, social media is a great place to drive people to those website properties. Things like developing loyal fans. You probably have people that support you on a very regular basis. Using social media to enhance those efforts, again, a perfect place. A lot of sales goals, generating leads. So, for example, finding new restaurants that you can be sourcing your products for. Social media is a great place to start those conversations and then take them offline. Same with growing business partnerships. And again, growing camaraderie and a sense of community. Obviously, you guys, if you're members of NOFA New York, they provide that community, and you're used to talking to people who live and breathe within that environment. So this is certainly, a great place to, again, start those conversations and be able to communicate with one another more regularly than you otherwise would have. So again, just kind of a brief overview of what social media is and how you can start to be thinking about using it for your business. We're going to take a quick break, and then we'll talk about some best practices to follow when you do start getting involved or increase your involvement in social media. So now we're going to talk about some social media best practices. So you guys are ready to dive in, or you already are involved with social media sites and developing content for those sites. We're going to outline some tips and tricks, if you will, of things to keep in mind as you're going through and getting more involved in social media. So the first thing I wanted to talk about in terms of best practices is really setting a strategy. So talking about, from an actual business standpoint rather than a social media strategic standpoint, why am I doing this? Why am I getting involved in social media? So, it could be, again, going back to the business objective that you want to meet. Do you want to let more people know about, you existing as a farm? Do you want to make connections within the farming industry? Do you want to raise awareness with your farm with local restaurants so you can start selling to those? Or, do you want to think about becoming a thought leader within the organic farming space? Are you somebody who holds a lot of knowledge that's ready to kind of share that different knowledge and expertise? Social media is a great place for all of those, but really honing in on why you are going to be different in the social media space and why people are going to want to pay attention to you is really important to set that strategy before you even get involved in social media in the first place. So be thinking about that. Once you have that strategy set, it's very important to obviously determine what social media sites you want to get involved with. So do you want to solely be on Facebook, or do you have the capacity and the resources in terms of yourself or your farm team to be able to handle multiple social media sites? If you've gotten involved in social media, you know that it can be a time commitment. So really paying attention to and being cognizant of how much available time you have to be creating content and talking with other people on these social media sites is very important, because that's going to allow you to determine what is the best use of your time. And again, this is different for all different types of businesses, all different size teams. If you're a sole farmer who obviously very busy from sunrise all the way to dawn, very, very important to be able to manage your time well. And we'll talk about a couple of ways to even be doing some of this right from out in the fields as well. So being cognizant of what resources you have available will really help you determine what sites you should be on. So on these social media sites, design matters. And what I mean by design, the photos that you're sharing, the actual properties that you have. So if you have a farm Facebook page, for example, making sure the imagery is something that's really going to capture someone's eye when they first come to the page, because you could be sharing the best information and the best content in the world, but unless you have something that's really going to capture the attention of somebody who gets to your site, they're not going to go any further and dig into that content. So being able to incorporate good design into everything that you're doing across social media is very, very important. So paying attention again to things like the Facebook header photos or the background photos, or even if you have a farm logo that can be used, make sure that's something that's really recognizable for users, so they can know who they're talking to and who they're reading content from. So let's talk a little bit about content. So what I mean by content is essentially the stuff you're sharing and the stuff you're interacting with on social media. So one of the things that we like to outline for businesses is telling them to create content buckets. So these are different areas of content that you have specialty in, and really determining a focus of who you are as a farmer, what you do, what types of produce you're growing, where you're selling your produce. Again, is it at a farmer's market? Do you interact with restaurants that source food from you to build menu items? Thinking about yourself from an operational standpoint will really allow you to outline these buckets. And then, as you're developing content, we'll talk about developing an editorial calendar in a minute. You'll really be able to follow those guidelines, and it'll take some of the pressure off determining, what you should be sharing in the social media space. So let's run through a couple of examples of content buckets for farmers. So you could be, simply sharing farm photos. Again, I talked about, how do you capture some of the work that you're doing on a day-to-day basis. It could be as simple as taking pictures of, crops that you're harvesting, or, some of the operations out in the field, some of your workers, going around and taking videos or doing short interviews. Again, you're probably carrying your phone or mobile device with you wherever you go, utilizing that technology to be able to quickly take a snapshot of something out in the field, upload it to Instagram or upload it to Facebook, and add a quick comment. It's something that's very simple, but it's something that can be very effective in terms of getting people to understand who you are as a farm and what type of things you have to offer. Informational updates, again, on what's available. Obviously, your growing season changes. The things that you're harvesting is completely different in the spring as it is in the summer, in the fall, and again, into the winter as well. So really keeping people updated on the types of offerings that you have will not only be informative for them, but also get them excited to be involved in your farm, again, whether at a CSA level or to some other capacity. Giving them behind the scenes exclusives, so to speak, of you and your workers. Social media is a great place to give yourself some personality and to let a wider audience know who you are and what you believe in and what you do on your farm. So whether that's through text updates or, again, through photos or quick videos, introducing people just as you would in the real world, introducing people to who you are as an individual. Customer testimonials and content. Again, who your customer is, who you've defined, whether it be individuals or, let's say, a chef at a local restaurant that you provide produce for. Getting their feedback on the products, and obviously picking someone who you have a really good relationship with and who's likely to speak highly of you. This is really, really great content to be sharing out on the social media space because it's going to bring other people like them to the table for you. No pun intended. Industry articles, opinions, and thought leadership. This is something that is obviously huge. There's so many food policy issues within this space that I'm sure you have very strong opinions about, or you are already experts in that area. People want to be hearing information about this, even if they aren't farmers themselves. There is a huge, for example, the NOFA New York audience on social media isn't made up solely of farmers, believe it or not. It's a lot of people who are just interested in the policy issues, interested in organic farming practices, or even organic gardening at their homes. And these are people who are kind of thirsty for information and content from experts like yourself. So being able to share that will really position you as what we call a thought leader within the space, a go-to resource, if you will, for information about organic farming or related materials. So we touched quickly on developing an editorial calendar, and this is something that you can do yourself or with a team, and it can be as simple as printing out a calendar or making notes for days of the week, and then coming up with different ideas of things to be writing about on social media. And again, all of the content that you're developing, this is important to note, all of the content that you're developing doesn't have to be developed specifically for one social media site or another. So let's say you're taking a photo or you're grabbing a customer testimonial. That's something that can be used on Facebook. It can be used on Instagram or really any type of social media site. So being cognizant that you can develop content once and reposition it and put it out on multiple social media channels, those that you're involved in, is really effective and a great way to save time. So when we talk about an editorial calendar, jumping back to that, just jotting down ideas and taking some of the weight off of your plate, it's very, very difficult to be thinking about content on an ongoing basis and kind of find yourself stuck in the moment, if you will, of what should I be posting today? What does my audience want to know right now? A lot of times, if you do a lot of the work up front, sit down, spend a couple of hours taking down notes, you can revisit those notes and be able to post some really great things that you've thought about and maybe forgotten until you took a look at the stuff that you developed. And likely, if you're practicing, taking these notes and developing an editorial calendar, the content that you're doing when you're sitting down in a controlled environment is going to be very relevant to the business objectives that we talked about at the beginning of this presentation, more so than if you're trying to come up with content off the cuff, and it's really not rooted in that business strategy that we talked about. So again, mapping out the content is hugely important. Organization is very important in social media. Again, how do I take the content that I'm developing for one platform or social media site, which we mean by platform, and how do I reposition it to be able to be used? So, how do I take a long post on Facebook and cut that down to 140 characters for Twitter, but not have to reinvent the wheel, so to speak, in terms of content development? Make sure all of the content fits into one of the buckets, the content buckets that we talked about. Sometimes people try to go outside of their bread and butter, so to speak, and it becomes very difficult for them to give relevant information, and they're trying to talk about all of the different things, making sure that you're really honed into the content buckets that you've laid out. Doesn't mean those content buckets can't change over time. They certainly can, but really making sure that what you're doing is rooted in those content buckets will really be helpful for you. Focus on seasonality. That's very important, and obviously something that you guys know better than anybody. But really, match the growing season content to relevant times of the year. You don't want to be sharing winter photos when it's the middle of July, because people, won't think you're up to speed on what you're doing on the farm, when obviously you are. And again, use more food policy content during the off season. Because these are times that you're not out on the field, most likely. You can't be capturing those, fresh produce shots like you would in the spring and summer and fall months. So really using different types of content to be posting during different types of the year will really resonate well with your social media audience. So this is something that we talk about all the time in terms of, okay, I think I have a good idea of the types of content that I'm developing, but I'm not sure it's going to be meaningful to the audience. So we've come up with a checklist of things that you always want to be sure to hit on. And when you're developing a piece of content, you want to make sure it's hitting on at least one of these items. It could be hitting on more. So is the content entertaining? Is it, again, a photo or a behind-the-scenes video of someone working on the farm that people are just watching? The internet, we all know the internet's full of cat videos, so can you be sharing, pictures of your animals that, are really entertaining for people to be consuming in terms of content? Is the content human? What we mean by human is, does it make people want to speak to you as an individual? Again, we talked about social media as being a two-way stream of communication. Is the stuff that you're sharing, do people want to interact with it? Is it valuable? Is it providing, specific deals or discounts for people who follow you on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram? Are you giving them, a certain amount of value through your content, whereas other people who aren't following you or aren't interacting with you are not getting? That's kind of bringing an exclusive feel to your conversations on social media. Does it provide utility? So, are you providing information on growing tips and tricks for people to be thinking about? Is it informative? Are they, again, getting some piece of information that they can take from social media and bring into the real world in practice? Is it shareable? Is this something that people want to show their friends? Is it, again, exclusive? Can people who only are interacting and reading your content in social media, are they the only ones that can see that content and get that information and see that value? And again, is it educational? Are you being that thought leader within the social media space that we all know you can be? So take advantage of all of the tools that exist. A lot of sites like Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and Pinterest, they all have their own set of best practices and tools that you can be using and taking advantage of. But there are other services as well to make your life easier. Buffer is a great example. They do have a free version of their service. And it basically allows you to, schedule posts. So again, we talked about developing an editorial calendar and taking an hour or two out of your time to set up that calendar, whether it's for a week or for a month. A tool like Buffer allows you to, so to speak, plug in all of that content so it gets posted throughout the week or throughout the month automatically, and you kind of don't have to think about it. From a posting standpoint, you obviously always want to be thinking about it from responding and communicating with the people who are consuming that content. So another great thing that it does is it learns the type of content that you're posting. So it could see, that you're posting all about organic farming policy, and the tool starts to recommend posts. Links from other news sites, for example, or tips and tricks that other people have posted in social media, and they give you recommendations. So again, take some of the weight off your shoulders with trying to develop and come up with new content to be sharing through social media. It also helps you to develop a schedule. So obviously, it's very important that you don't want to be posting all of your content at 2 or 3 in the morning, because nobody's going to be on Facebook or on Twitter, Instagram, any of these sites. Well, I shouldn't say nobody. Some people are, but the large majority, are going to be during day hours. And really getting a good feel on when you're getting the most interaction is going to be important to think about from both a time of day standpoint and from a day of the week standpoint. And that's something that as you get going, you'll start to learn, okay, many more people are interacting with me on the weekends than on the weekdays. And that works out well because, sometimes I have a little bit more free time, for example. So it's different with every business and certainly with every farmer. So kind of developing a schedule and getting used to it. It'll also really allow you to kind of bake it into your daily routine, and it'll become second nature. You won't even be thinking about posting. You'll just be doing it. Again, using other tools to help you out with social media, and this definitely, we'll talk in a second about becoming friendly, even more friendly with the farming community and those getting involved on social media. But by using some of the tools like email, for example, that we talked about, leveraging those tools that you're already used to using and that people are already used to talking with you back and forth. This could be, certainly email is a great example, but face-to-face conversations that you're having at the farmer's market. Don't be afraid to let people know that you are becoming more active on Facebook, or here is the URL where you can find our farm on Facebook now. Taking advantage of those other communication tools that you're already using is a great way to drive people towards your social media sites and increase the involvement and the interaction that you're seeing on those sites. And again, get friendly. So the golden rule of social media is scratch others' backs before they scratch yours. So developing a social media community, again, this is probably in a large part the same community that you have in the offline space. So really becoming friendly and doing things like sharing content, liking content, really going out of your way to interact with whether it's other farms or news organizations or NOFA New York as an organization themselves. I know they would love to be interacting with you on a regular basis. And a lot of times the best way to really get people to interact with the content that you're sharing and develop those communications and that sense of community is to be sharing content and commenting on content that other people are posting before you expect them to be doing the same for you. And that will come very quickly if you start making a habit out of doing that. Again, a smaller thing, always be sure to respond. So this is important just from, again, developing that sense of community and friendship, quote unquote, in the social media space. But believe it or not, sites like Facebook, they reward businesses who respond to people more so than others. So I'm sure many of you who use Facebook or Twitter on an individual level know that you don't always see every post from every person that you're connected with or from every business that you follow. And there's a reason for that. There's just so much content that Facebook has to curate how they show people content. So they reward people who respond and who interact with their community more so than others. So it's really important that you are responding, even if it's with a simple thanks for your comment. Keeping it very simple is often a great practice to undertake. And again, bringing the real world online. So don't think of social media as a huge new endeavor or a new frontier, so to speak, for your farm. It's really doing a lot of the things that you're doing on an offline basis or quote unquote real world basis and giving people updates on those things. So a great example is if you're holding an event at your farm or updates on your CSA weekly pickups. Social media is a great place to not only interact with people who are at those events themselves, but to also share information and content with people who weren't able to attend that day or who aren't closely involved in your CSA group. So bringing your day-to-day activities from the farm into the social media space, again, a great practice to get into. one of the most important things with social media is to always be measuring. And again, I understand that there's limited capacity, so this is even more important to be thinking about. So always be measuring. All of these tools provide great analytics and insights. So, if you do have a Facebook page, you've probably seen this Insights tab at the top. Click into that and do a little bit of exploring. There's some great insights into a lot of the stuff that you're sharing, how it's actually performing. So you can see things like are people interacting with photos more so than just text posts? If I share a news article or links, are they getting more shares and comments than other types of content? Really, getting a feel over time. Again, you're not going to get all of the answers right away, but really making sure you're measuring all of these activities is going to help you ensure that you're not wasting time in posting information and content that people aren't interested in. And again, all of these sites provide great analytics tools within themselves, and often they're easy to understand and easy to navigate, and the best way is to jump in and explore. So a couple of things, examples, again, overall post reach. So how many people are actually seeing your post on Facebook or on Twitter? How big is your community? How many people are interacting with your content? So are people liking the photos or videos that you're sharing? Or are people sharing great articles that you've posted? Or are people leaving comments and opinions on the things that you're posting? Are you getting retweets on Twitter? Are you retweeting other people? And are you getting replies and seeing that communication? All important stuff to be paying attention to. The total number of posts by you per week or per month. Set a baseline. So if this week you posted 3 times to Facebook and 2 times to Twitter, how can you increase that frequency? Because that's really only going to benefit your community size, but also how many people are actually interacting with your content. Posting more, you're going to get more interaction. Not always. That's typically the case, however. Your community size in general. So taking a look at how many people like your business or farm page on Facebook. How do you start to grow that number so you can reach a wider audience? And then again, looking at the insights, what types of posts are performing well. So do videos really perform much better than strictly text posts? Or are you posting polls about what your consumers want to see, what your customers want to see on the farm? Or are photos something that people tend to be very interested in and interact with on a regular basis? So as you're gathering all of this information, again, some of it you should be taking with a grain of salt because it can change over time, but also really important stuff to be looking at from a business standpoint over time, so you can always be improving on the stuff that you're sharing. So that's it for best practices, and our last section will be outlining some guiding principles for social media involvement for farming as kind of a wrap-up to the presentation. So the last section we're going to talk about is kind of a guiding principles and a summary to some of the things that we've talked about today that you can take back and be thinking about more conceptually as you bring yourself and your farm into the social media world. So the first and foremost, these all have a farming spin on them. So pick your crops. So each year and each season, you determine what crops you're going to be planting on your farm, right? So the same should be the case with social media. So again, talking about why do you want to be involved in social media in the first place, but also what types of sites do you want to be participating on? So are your crops Facebook and sharing content through that? Is it Instagram? Do you really like Twitter and want to get more involved in that? Again, picking the crops is going to be the best way to get started. Not only deciding what you're going to do, but deciding where you're going to do it. The next step is obviously planting the seeds. So you've picked your crops. The first step is getting those seeds in the ground and ready to grow, if you will. These crops won't just spring up magically. That's something very, very important. It takes time and a consistent effort. We've touched on today a couple times that this stuff doesn't happen overnight, just like your crops don't come up out of the ground overnight. It does take time. It takes practice. You become better the more you get involved in it, just like with farming. And while some of the benefits may be very immediate, the seeds of social media can continue to grow time and time again. Again, whether it's repositioning content and using your expertise over and over again, that's something that can bring you a great benefit over time, not just the day that you're posting something on social media. The growing season is measured in months, not days. And again, going along the same theme, you have to give it time. Setting strong benchmarks. Remember all of the measurement analytics that we talked about. Seeing where you are if you've been involved in social media as a farmer, as a business for some time now. Going in and looking at some of those tools, that's a great place to start to see where you can improve upon. Getting an idea of how you're performing and how much people are interacting with, talking with you on social media really sets the groundwork and gives you something to build upon as you start to get more and more involved and devote more resources to social media. Again, whether it's from a marketing or a sales or a customer service standpoint, or if it's crisis communication, you'll start to get an idea of what performs really well and a couple of things that you can be improving upon, again, over time. It takes a village. We talked about becoming very, very friendly with community members. Obviously, you know better than anybody the farming community, and specifically the organic farming community, are a very close-knit group of individuals and businesses, and this is something that you can definitely be taking advantage of. So just like at harvest, you bring a lot more people onto your farm to be able to help cultivate those crops and bring those crops from the farm to the farmer's market or to CSA directly to consumers or to restaurants or institutions, for example. The same can be said of social media. And remember the scratch others' backs before they scratch yours rule. Be helpful. People will go out of their way to help you in return if you're helpful on social media. So, what can you be sharing or commenting on or liking from other farms or other individuals within the industry? You're going to really see those efforts go a long way in terms of people reciprocating those actions. And again, social media rewards those who give more than they take, going right along with the same ideas. Just as you would help a customer who comes to your farm, help others in social media, and you'll see great benefit from those types of efforts. Rotate your crops. So you have all different fields likely all over your farm. You have different crops in those fields, and probably more often than not, you're changing those on an annual or biannual basis, whatever that schedule is, because you know that the soil on those fields is going to perform better if you're changing out those crops. Same thing can be said for social media. So the quote-unquote crops you're growing or the content you're sharing, the things you're sharing on these social media sites may be really relevant and perform very well today, but next year or even next growing season, they may not make as much sense. Again, talking about things like seasonality or changing your operations as a business, keeping people up to date on those changes is very important and will keep people coming back for more information, whether it be, again, on Facebook or other social media sites. Don't count on control. We talked about crisis communication a little bit, and with farming, obviously, there are aspects completely out of your control, like the weather being first and foremost, hugely impactful in terms of what you're able to grow on a season-by-season basis. Social media, again, is a little bit different because you're giving up some of the control of who you are as an organization. So people are going to, say things hopefully mostly positive. I'm sure they all will be, but there will be times where someone may say something negative about your business. It's important to be able to deal with those situations in a very meaningful way that's going to, in some cases, turn somebody who isn't happy with your products into one of your biggest advocates and fans. So knowing how to interact with those situations and being okay with giving up some of that control before you get involved will make that situation much, much easier as you go on with your involvement in social media. And last but certainly not least, have fun. So the more you have fun with social media, the more you're going to get involved in it. And if this becomes part of your day and something that you're having fun, enjoying taking pictures for Instagram or, developing thought leadership pieces for your website or for Facebook or for even, industry news sites some of you are probably writing for, and you probably very much enjoy doing that. Having fun with these types of efforts, that's what's really going to take you to the next level and make sure you're still involved, month over month and year over year in these social media efforts. And again, this stuff takes time. If you're not having fun with it and it becomes a task and a chore, so to speak, it's probably something that you're going to drop off in terms of how much effort you're putting towards it. And having fun with the community that you're interacting with will keep you involved and keep others coming back to be able to talk with you. And again, you'll see a huge benefit with your use of social media, especially if you're having fun. So we hope you enjoyed this presentation and gotten a lot out of it today. Again, feel free to reach out to the team at NOFA New York. They'd be happy to help out with your marketing and social media efforts. We're also going to provide a link to the presentation on the bottom of this YouTube description. So definitely dig through. There are probably a lot of things that you can revisit over time, and this will be live for you to watch. So thanks and have a great day.